You know how Formula One loves to shake things up every few years? Well, the 2026 season might just be the biggest shakeup we've seen in decades. We're not just talking about a new front wing or a fresh tire compound, we're talking about an entirely new formula, a new engine, a lighter, narrower car, fully active aerodynamics, and a power unit that ditches the MGUH completely while tripling electric output. It's a complete overhaul. But here's the twist. The very changes that are supposed to future-proof the sport might actually tear it apart, at least for a while. The FIA wants to push the sport towards sustainability and better racing, and on paper, that sounds fantastic. The 2026 engines will run on 100% sustainable fuels. The cars will be 30 kilograms lighter. The new aerodynamic rules are designed to make them shorter, nimbler, and supposedly better at racing side by side. Drivers will control the aero with two distinct modes: X mode for straights and Z mode for corners. Sounds cool, right? Almost like a video game, but behind that glossy surface there's panic brewing. Not the kind of panic you hear from fans on social media. This is coming straight from inside the FAA. Nicholas Tambatzis, the FIA's head of single-seaters, straight up admitted it. Not every team will be ready for 2026. And that's not just because it's difficult, it's because the 2026 rulebook is such a massive leap into the unknown that even the big teams could get it wrong. That's terrifying. The biggest fear isn't just that the field will spread out, it's how much. For the past couple of seasons, we've had shockingly close qualifying sessions. Sometimes just 6 or 7 tenths separate P1 and P10. That kind of parity makes every race feel alive. But Tim Bazzi's hinted that this could disappear overnight. Instead of a tight field, we might be looking at a 3-tier series. One team that nailed it, a few that are close but clearly behind, and the rest stuck with cars that are just plain bad. And it's not just a theory. There are already signs. Brake manufacturer Brembo, who works closely with all the teams, recently revealed something pretty alarming. Every team is going in wildly different directions. That means one of two things. Either we're about to witness one of the most creative seasons in F1 history, or a few teams have completely misunderstood the rules and are heading straight for disaster. Now imagine this. Mercedes thinks they've built the next RB19, but in reality, Audi might be outpacing them on every single metric: top speed, downforce, battery deployment, and nobody knows it until the cars hit the track in January. That's the level of uncertainty we're talking about here. Tambazzis and the FIA are so concerned they've already started preparing for damage control. To give struggling teams a fighting chance, the FIA is tweaking the rules in the background. They're adjusting test time allowances, offering flexibility on wind tunnel hours, and even considering extra development rights for teams that miss the mark. It's a safety net, no doubt, but it also tells you something else. They're not confident that everyone's going to land on their feet. And when you really think about it, this whole thing could go either way. We could get an incredible season with wild unpredictability and new underdog heroes, or we could end up with one team lapping the field while the rest scramble just to survive. Either way, Formula One in 2026 isn't going to be business as usual. Barcelona, January. That's when the whole thing goes public. The first private tests for the 2026 cars are scheduled to take place there, and it's shaping up to be one of the most anticipated preseason events in years. Not because we'll see lap records fall or jaw-dropping visuals, but because nobody, not even the teams, really knows what to expect. Everyone's flying blind. No one has a benchmark. There's no RB19 or W14 to copy this time. Every car is a blank canvas, and that's exactly why some teams might show up with a masterpiece while others arrive with a disaster. The size of the challenge is hard to overstate. The cars are shrinking, literally. The wheelbase is being cut down by 200 millimeters, and the overall width is being trimmed by another 100. That alone forces a massive redesign of chassis, suspension, and cooling systems. On top of that, the floor width is being reduced by 150 mil, and the cars are shedding 30 kilos. These aren't tweaks. This is like telling a sculptor to carve a statue with half the marble and a brand new set of tools. Then comes the wild card, active aerodynamics. DRS is gone. Instead, drivers will manually control two wing settings, flipping between X mode for top speed and Z mode for cornering. Sounds innovative, but the technical implications are enormous. Teams need to build a car that works in both modes seamlessly. Get the balance wrong and the driver either slides through corners or gets eaten alive on straights. Worse yet, if the switching mechanism malfunctions even slightly, you're toast. But even with all that, the engine situation might be the trickiest part. 2026 will bring a simplified power unit, ditching the MGUH and introducing a dramatic increase in battery reliance. We're talking a 300% jump in electrical output. That's not a small bump, it changes everything, from energy harvesting strategy to cooling requirements. Plus, overtaking will now depend on how cleverly a driver uses their electrical deployment, almost like Formula E but mixed with hybrid F1 tech. It's a whole new learning curve for everyone, drivers included. And just because they simplified the engine doesn't mean they made it easier. In fact, Tom Bazzi's revealed that some manufacturers may already be falling behind. That's where the FIA's secret weapon comes in. A rulebook appendix no one really paid attention to until now. It allows for something called additional development opportunities if a team's internal combustion engine is more than 3% down on power compared to the best performing one. If that happens, the lagging manufacturer gets more dyno time, more money to spend on development, and more freedom to upgrade. This is where things get dicey. Critics are already calling it a disguised version of balance of performance, a system used in endurance racing that artificially levels the playing field. Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff has openly criticized that kind of rule, saying he'd walk away from any series that plays favorites like that. But Tim Bazzi insists this is different. No one's getting more fuel, more displacement, or extra batteries. The rules are still the same, they're just giving teams a chance to catch up if they're too far behind. That being said, it raises a tough question. If everyone gets the same rules, but some teams are allowed to spend more or test more because they underperformed, doesn't that still shift the balance? And what happens if a team deliberately tanks performance early on just to unlock those perks? It's a loophole waiting to be exploited. But the FIA's betting on good faith and cooperation, a risky move in a sport built on pushing every gray area to the edge. There's another complication hiding in plain sight, and it's not about speed, it's about survival. The cost cap. The same rule that was meant to level the playing field might now become a trap for the very teams it was supposed to protect. The new engines aren't just experimental, they're expensive, really expensive. And if something goes wrong early on, like reliability issues or repeated failures during testing, teams could burn through their budgets without even getting a race under their belts. Nicholas Tombazis has acknowledged this risk, and the FIA is already drafting a backup plan. One of the more controversial ideas? If a team experiences multiple engine failures early in the season, they might be allowed to upgrade components outside the normal rules, and to prevent cost cap penalties from killing their season before it starts, additional engine units used after a certain threshold might not even count against the budget cap. It's like damage control baked into the system, just in case a team's power unit turns out to be a ticking time bomb. But while that might sound fair, it also opens the door to chaos. What if a team pushes a high-risk, high-reward engine design knowing they'll get extra help if it fails? Or worse, what if rival teams start demanding similar treatment the moment one gets a special allowance? The FIA is trying to write rules that keep everyone honest, but in Formula One, honesty is usually the first casualty when there's a tenth of a second on the line. Meanwhile, the fans are left wondering what this means for the actual racing. Will the grid still be competitive? Will overtaking be easier with all these changes? Or will the new aero and power strategies make it more complicated than ever? No one knows, and even the FIA isn't pretending to have all the answers. They're hoping that the new aero concept, the front and rear wing switching system, and lighter chassis will keep the racing tight, but it's all theoretical until those cars line up under the lights for the first Grand Prix. The most likely scenario? Chaos, at least at the start. Some teams will nail the new regulations and hit the ground flying, others will spend half the season trying to figure out where they went wrong, and the midfield, which has been so tight in recent years, could turn into a wasteland of misconcepts and second guessing. One team could dominate by pure accident, not because they're smarter, but because they happen to guess right in a sea of uncertainty. It's not all doom and gloom, though. In fact, unpredictability is exactly what keeps Formula One interesting. Remember 2009 when Braun GP shocked everyone by dominating with a double diffuser? Or 2022 when Red Bull and Ferrari brought totally different concepts to the table and we got one of the most dynamic seasons in years? That element of surprise is priceless. And 2026 is loaded with the kind of wild variables that could deliver those iconic moments all over again. The bottom line is this: Formula One is taking a huge gamble. They're betting on innovation, sustainability, and a better show. But in doing so, they've created a minefield of technical challenges, rule gray zones, and potential disasters. Whether that turns into a golden era or a rough reboot will depend entirely on how fast the teams adapt and how flexible the FIA is willing to be when things inevitably go sideways. Until then, the only thing that's guaranteed is that 2026 will be unlike anything we've seen before.